It would be hilarious. Okay, I'm talking now. Okay, so Nancy, I think your idea of sharing our thought processes in and motivations behind this platform we are envisioning is excellent. So my thought process actually began almost, I would say, I hate to admit how old I am, but 40 years ago, when I began to work with industry, and I began to realize academia had very little real insight into real industry requirements. And then later on, as I progressed in this whole idea of workflow, which is to facilitate knowledge flow between people, as I began to develop and apply the technology, I realized that we never consider communities. That is, next to some of the biggest institutions in the world, we have pockets of the greatest poverty and greatest rates of crime due to lack of opportunities. And we have some of the greatest rates of drug abuse, prostitution, and so on. And that's certainly true of where I came from, which is Ohio State University, where I was a faculty member. But over the years, I began to realize, as I developed and deployed enterprise workflow technology in large organizations like Boeing, British Aerospace, Caterpillar, the workflows that were deployed were within a silo. And silos are typically business silos, academic silos, and governmental silos. And these silos do not actually capture integrated data about the community. So we typically work for business or academic or policy or governmental efficiency, but we don't fundamentally incorporate the needs of the community. So going back to this observation that we have pockets of greatest need near some of our biggest institutions, how do we fill the gap so we can address the needs of the community? So that's a big starting point. I see you want to talk. Okay, I'm mute.
Thanks, Jay. That's a great start. And from your perspective as the individual who's been writing code for 4 years based on those motivations, I think that's a great way to help people understand what was driving you and what you were looking at and what you were experiencing. On my side of the experiential trajectory, I have always been fascinated with how information impacts our lives, how it flows, how it is created, how it is guided, how it is censored, and how it is freed, and how powerful it can be in executing democracy. For years, I spent many years observing media, the alternative press specifically, and as a historian and a communicator, it has been fascinating to me to see what has happened to information as a commodity. It's become commodified at hyperspeeds in the digital era. And the impact of that commodification of information has been, as we have seen, quite devastating on the democratic process. And I think I'm going to go forward with the understanding that the democratic process is critical. It's critical that it occurs on a global scale in order to preserve the planet and humanity itself. That's a much bigger conversation. But that's a premise that is in my mind as I go forward working on this project. So the commodification of information is happening as corporate entities are trying to figure out how to monetize their asset in a digital environment. So we've gone from the hunters and gatherers to the agricultural revolution to the industrial revolution, and now we have the information revolution coupled with the digital revolution. And these outcomes are happening right now in a current economic system known as capitalism. So it's profit driven, which requires that we have marketplace commodities that can be exchanged for currency, where we can create a spread and experience a profit, right? That's how we measure success within this current system. So in the information age, in the digital landscape, we have these people trying to find ways to commodify information. In doing that, they end up siloing the information itself by topic. They end up creating paywalls, which exclude vast portions of the population who may already be excluded simply because they don't have access to they don't have digital capability. So you have one layer of exclusion, which is quite primitive. You have a second layer, which is economic, which is paywalls. And then the outcome of that is that information becomes available to those who are capable of accessing it. Okay? That information, again, driven by profit, is created, edited, and censored to make it highly desirable to those most capable of paying for it. Okay? What does this do to democracy? All of a sudden we have these silos of individuals who are using information which is not complete. And we think of the fairness doctrine in journalism that happened in 1949. The FCC put it out in 1949. No longer exists. So journalists are not required to provide fair and balanced reporting. So it's a frickin' free-for-all out there. And the information, the misinformation, the lies, the psychological manipulation through information has had a devastating impact on democracy. So that's long-winded. I'll take a breath and just say that, you and I are doing an anti-startup. We're doing a tech startup. It's a platform that answers this question. And we're not going to VCs. There's no venture capitalists that we're going to. If you are one, we're not going to be talking to you. We are bringing this up with as much economic efficiency as we can garner in order to allow us to serve the information landscape in a way that promotes democracy with as much inclusion as possible. And I'm going to take a breath there and mute my mic, and back to you, Jay.
Okay. Wow. Many interesting points to pick up on. The first point related to commoditization is that we really have to look at the meaning of words that we are throwing around. Are we simply amplifying falsehoods? Are we actually improving our formulation and assemblage of words to increase the knowledge content? These are some fundamental questions that technologists have to answer. And in every shape, way, and form, technology can only help if a good pattern exists and we can identify the pattern. If the pattern is based on networking people and using that network to grab as many people as you can to support markets, information markets. Then you are going to look for groups in your network that are living in information bubbles, and you're going to feed them the information that they want. So we need a way to think about technology that actually counters this current trend. And we have to look at what are the aspects of knowledge that can actually benefit communities and therefore promote democracy, but a very localized interpretation of democracy. Uh, and so uh, this localized interpretation of democracy comes because you are both crowdsourcing information, but also curating information to enhance the quality of the words from simply broadcasting the same old information to new knowledge. And that only comes when the right groups of people are involved across the traditional silos of business, academia, government, not for profits. And even we have to think of environment as an entity, and we have to think about other resources as entities when we are taking a silo busting approach with technology. Okay, I got it out. Nancy, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Jay. So, in this anti-startup, I'm sure people will appreciate the fact that we're doing these podcasts. You know, I'm in a holler in the Blue Ridge, and Jay's up there in Columbus, Ohio. And right now, I'm just thanking God that my dogs didn't go off in the middle of this podcast. So, thanks, Jay. I'm going to wind it up here. We're done. Thank you.